All right. My story. Today's my story. And the question is, what kind of work did your father's parents do? And, well, my grandfather, like I said, he owned property. So he had, I said earlier that my great grandfather was a pie maker, and he became huge, and he was making mad money. Like, he was big, so he was wealthy. And when he passed, he was trying to pass it down to my grandfather, but they told me that my grandfather was not interested in baking. So he had these bakeries that were sitting there, and I guess the city came and wanted to the first time they wanted to build something, so they gave him money for it, and he started putting it into properties. And that was him. And he also had a landscaping business. So like I said, I don't know why he did that. I guess he just liked to work, and like a hard day's work. And he would get all these contracts. I think he almost started getting commercial contracts because he was going all over the city, and to take care of these lawns. And I don't mean like backyard lawns, like, no, not like those kind of lawns, like church lawns, like golf lawns. Like when he had me out there, I was like, it was acres of mowing, you know what I mean? So it was so big, and it was one guy, so he would hire kids in the neighborhood, young guys in the neighborhood, and then he would get them their section. They would get a truck, and they would put some lawnmowers on the back, and they would just go out and they would do their sections, and he would pay them. And a few of them got so good that I know that when I went down there to work, there were a few guys that had started their own businesses, and they were just trying to become independent. They grew with him, took off and got their own business. I don't think my grandpa was really proud of them that they were doing their own thing. I think that was a big thing to my grandpa, that and even my all the way back, someone found we have a family historian of the council family, and the family historian, like, if you tell him who you are, he'll tell you where you are in the family tree. And I gotta go find it, but he sent me my great grandfather was one of the catalysts of like a lot of kids, and he was wealthy. And in 1932, he sent me a newspaper clipping of my great grandfather being part of the Rotary Club, and that he was having I think it was like a 16th child. And that in the article they were saying that he was really a community guy. Really, he was part of the Rotary Club, one, but he was also like gave back to the community. And they somehow called him like he's a good scout. I think it was like racist, but and they also misspelled his name. But you get that I get it all the time too. Like people who are sitting there reading it and they just want to be disrespectful and do that. But my point is being that my grandfather really was into giving back to his community. And my community, I did some research on the city that I'm from, Chester, and there was a time at the war when the Second War was going on that industrialism came to the East Coast, and they wanted to start building all type of war materials for the war. And the city became like one of those places, a big industrial city where there's like business was booming. But by the time I got there, I think when I was a child, I could swore that I was there in my other grandma's house in her neighborhood in Chester, where she moved in, and there were all white people around us, and one by one they just started disappearing. So I think I actually saw white flight. And so it was a poor neighborhood, like a very poor neighborhood, and my grandpa is a millionaire, but he still stayed in the neighborhood. He never really, I told you, he passed away. He lived with his girlfriend, but they both had two different rooms, and his was like a small room, so he wasn't even like into the money like that. He didn't even care. I think he was going to church because when he passed, the church said that he was always there and he was a big part of the church. So my grandfather owned real estate, and he was had his own landscaping business. And my grandmother, Henrietta, was a teacher. She was an educator. And that's so much like, I don't know, like my grandma was, to me, my grandma always like was on this level. You know what I mean? Like she was up here. Like there was always like a conflict between my mother and my grandmother for some reason. I don't think my grandmother really liked my mother and or approved of my mother. And she was just very, I always got like black excellence. I don't know why, but for some reason, when I go to my grandma's house, I always envision that for some reason there was always floss that, or they either told me, or I saw a lot of papers of my grandma's grades and they were always straight A's. And I know that she was really big on education because my aunt became a teacher also. And my aunt taught my mother when my mother was in high school. So like, I remember my mother telling me that my aunt was one of her teachers. My parents are 10 years apart. You know what I mean? So it was like, it's a total, like, my whole life it was just like weird because my mom is like, we're like 17 years apart. But my dad's like a grown ass man and he's like always an old man, you know what I mean? So yeah, so my grandpa, real estate and landscaping. And also, like I said, he had money. He was left money. But also there's a council family money. There's old money back there somewhere that he was dealing with too. My grandpa was always a type who and I think that's part of me too. Like my grandpa was a type that he never bragged about money to me, you know what I mean? He never said anything about that. So he was always very humble about it. And he never like, I don't have any money. He's always saying, I don't have any money. So I'm always that guy, no matter how much money I have, like, I don't really have any money, you know what I mean? Like, and he was rich. He was saying he didn't have no money. Like, how you don't have no money? You always, you know what I mean? He's in a raggedy truck. He's got dirty old jeans on. He's working, you know what I mean? He's got his hat on. He's got a water jug in the car, in the truck.